Welcome to a new documentary video. In this video, we are gonna talk about SMS Prinz Eugen. It's first the best to note you that you shouldn't mix this Prinz Eugen to the most famous heavy cruiser Prinz Eugen that was built by Germany between 1936 and 1938. So we are not gonna talk about her in this video. Instead of her, we are gonna talk about Prinz Eugen that was built by Austria-Hungary. If you haven't heard of Austria-Hungary, then you should look it up. We all others can go forward in this video. But I guess we have talked enough and we can finally go to listen what you came to listen here. Prinz Eugen's construction was started in January 16, 1912 in Stabilimento Tecnico Triestino in Trieste. The construction only took 10 months and she was launched on November 30th, 1912. The ship's assembling took 1.5 years and she was commissioned in July 8, 1914. Prinz Eugen was the third ship of the Tegethoff class dreadnought battleships. Her other sisters were Viribus-Unitis, Tegethoff and Zend Istvan. Let's first look about information about her. She was armed with 12 30.5 cm guns and 12 15 cm guns. Then she was armed with 18 x 7 cm guns, 3 x 66 mm anti-aircraft guns. She was also armed with 2 66 mm landing guns and 4 x 533 mm torpedo tubes. Let's look up her armor. She was armored with 150 to 280 mm belt and her turrets were armored with 60 to 280 mm armor. Damn. Her deck was armored with 30 to 48 mm armor and casemates with 180 mm armor. The complement of Prinz Eugen was 1087 men on board. Her speed was 20 knots, that's about 38 km per hour or 23 miles per hour. Prinz Eugen's propulsion was 4 steam turbine sets and her installed power was 27,000 shaft horsepower. Her length was 152 meters, beam 27 meters and draft was 8.7 meters. And lastly but not least, her displacement on full load was 23,908. Now when we have looked information about SMS Prinz Eugen, we can finally move on to First World War. Outbreak of World War I happened few weeks before Prinz Eugen was commissioned, and Italy declared itself as neutral country in August 1st, 1914. Italy's neutrality cut off Austro-Hungarian Navy's dreams to use Prinz Eugen in the Mediterranean Sea for combat operations. Because coal had been relied in Italian ports by Austro-Hungarian Navy to cooperate with the Italian Navy Regia Maria. Germany was implementing the Schlieffen Plan on August 4, 1914. On the same year, Germany invaded Belgium after its declaration of war on France. The UK joined in and declared war on Germany to support Belgium and its neutrality. The German Mediterranean Division requested help from Austro-Hungarian Navy. The division included only the German battlecruiser Goeben and the light cruiser Breslau. The German ships tried to break through from Messina, where they had loaded a lot of coal days before the war broke out. The British ships tried to trap German ships off Messina before the first week of August. However, the Austro-Hungarian Navy hadn't mobilized enough of its fleet yet, but it was able to assist the German ships. This assist group included Prinz Eugen and her 2 sisters Tegethoff and Viribus-Unitis. It also included SMS Radetzky, armored cruiser St. George, reconnaissance cruiser Admiral Spaun, and 6 destroyers and 13 torpedo boats. The High Command of Austria-Hungary warned Germany not to start war against Great Britain and also ordered the Navy to avoid Royal Navy ships and support the German ships, but only when they were in Austro-Hungarian waters. The German ships were able to break through from Messina in August 7th. At the same time, Austro-Hungarian Navy's fleet had begun to depart for Brindisi to contact the German warships. They asked them to escort the ships to a friendly port in Austria-Hungary. However, the German ships fooled the British and French fleet to chase them into the Adriatic Sea. Instead that the Germans went to the Adriatic Sea, they rounded the southern tip of Greece and headed to Dardanelles, where they eventually sold the ships to Turkey, which was Ottoman Empire then. The Austro-Hungarian fleet returned to Pola instead of following the German ships to the Black Sea. After the breakout of Messina by Breslau and Goeben, Prinz Eugen saw very little action after that. She spent most of her time in port of Pola. Lack of time at sea was passably common among every ship of Austro-Hungarian Navy. Very sad, but this was partly due to sea mines in the Adriatic Sea, although other factors contributed more or less lack of activity of the fleet. Someone never heard man House feared that even a direct confrontation with the French fleet would be successful. It still would give Italy free hands in the Adriatic Sea, and this would result to weaken the Austro-Hungarian fleet. Since this worry was so great for House, he wrote in September 1914, "As long as there is a possibility that Italy will declare war against us, I consider it my primary duty to keep our fleet intact." House's decision to use Austro-Hungarian Navy as a fleet led to the point where he earned sharp criticism from the Army of Austria-Hungary, German Navy, and the Austro-Hungarian Foreign Ministry. But it also led to the provision of a much larger naval force, but for the Mediterranean and Strait of Otranto. These could have been used elsewhere, such as against the Ottoman Empire during the Gallipoli campaign. The main factor that greatly contributed Prinz Eugen to spend most of her time in port of Pola was the complete lack of coal. Before the war broke out, Great Britain had been in good terms with Austria-Hungary, and Great Britain was the main source of coal for Austria-Hungary. Before the war began, most coal what Austria-Hungary received came from the mines of Germany and Virginia. But about 75% of the coal bought for the Austro-Hungarian Navy came from Great Britain. Due to the outbreak of the war, these coal sources of Britain and Virginia were no longer available for Austro-Hungarian Navy. But considerable quantities of coal had nevertheless been stored before the war, which enabled the Navy to set ships to sail from the harbor when need required, in case of Italian and French attacks. The need to ensure that Prinz Eugen had the necessary amount of coal that resulted in her and other battleships remain in the port, unless conditions were favorable and allowed to sail at sea. In early 1915, Germany requested that Prinz Eugen and other battleships in Austro-Hungarian fleet would carry out an attack on the Otranto barrage. This because it would relieve the Ottoman Empire's pressure at the Gallipoli campaign. House, who was very cautious in terms of ships leaving the port, rejected the request. House objected that at the southernmost of Adriatic Sea, the French had withdrawn their blockade and that none of the Anglo-French ships assigned to the blockade of Strait had been diverted to Dardanelles. House was especially in favor of keeping all Tegethoff-class ships in reserve just in case if Italy might step into war on the side of Entente. how strongly believed and was of the opinion that Italy would end its alliance with Germany and Austria-Hungary, and that by keeping battleships like Prinz Eugen safely in port, they could be quickly used to fight against Italy. And that's what happened. Italy declared war on Germany and Austria-Hungary in May 1915, and this strategy allowed the country to contact Italians soon after the war declaration. We're stopping this first part of the life of SMS Prinz Eugen to here. I'm sorry, but this have to be split in two parts, because the history of SMS Prinz Eugen is huge, and I cannot put everything in one video. But in the second part we are gonna continue the life of SMS Prinz Eugen, and hopefully we are able to put everything in that video. Like I cannot talk, but everything in that video. But I thank you if you liked the first part of this video. We are gonna see in the second part, and yeah, leave like if you liked and subscribe to the channel if you are interested. But remember, nobody forces you to do that. My name is Fireiktronomia, and we see you in the next video.